Hiya, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Retro Thing on the Radio, a RetroThing.com podcast. This is Bahush, and those of you who read Retro Thing may have long ago noticed I have a long-abiding love for old-time radio. I was actually just listening to I Love a Mystery like an hour ago. Over the years, there have been lots of tributes to old-time radio, from slavish duplication of those old shows to original productions in that style to parodies. Many people would cite the comedic takes on the form by the Firesign Theater, who managed to play in the tropes of old-time radio without undermining what makes radio drama and comedy cool. You could even say that Garrison Keillor today, on his Prairie Home Companion show on National Public Radio, they kind of keep radio comedy alive if you like your humor lugubrious and septuagenarian, which I must because I listen every week. But there's a new project out there we wanted to tell you about. It's a weekly podcast that does a brilliant job of capturing the vibe of old-time radio while keeping it alive and new for a whole fresh audience of people. It's called the Thrilling Adventure Hour. That's the umbrella name for a group of shows with writing that is so sparky, so funny, I don't know how it's only two guys writing all of it. You've got Ben Acker and Ben Blacker, who you'll be meeting later on in this podcast. The shows include a classic hero adventure, Captain Laserbeam. You might recognize the voice of John DiMaggio, who is the voice of Bender in Futurama. There's a show called Beyond Belief, which is a tale of a Nick and Nora Charles type of couple who are awful drunks, and they solve these supernatural mysteries, and I'll admit right here and right now, I have such an ear crush on Paget Brewster. Then there's The Big Show, Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars. That's a cowboy adventure set in space with Sparks Nevada and his obliging yet reluctant Martian sidekick Croach, played by Mark Gagliardi, whom you'll also be meeting in this little interview that we did. And ladies, get ready for your own ear crush. Man, the voice on this Mark guy is going to make you crazy. Now, if you haven't heard the brilliance in action, you should go to thrillingadventurehour.com right now. Do yourself a big favor and download these shows. We'll still be here when you get back. Now, I got to meet Ben Blacker and Mark Gagliardi the morning after a brilliant Thrilling Adventure Hour live show in Chicago at C2E2, which is a comic book media kind of show. We cover a lot of ground here, so tune into my cozy chat with Ben Blacker and Mark Gagliardi of the Thrilling Adventure Hour.
I know that people coming to my shows means my parents love me.
Okay, so it justifies their continued faith.
Yeah.
And probably an art degree, and they don't feel so bad. So how about, would one or the other of you give me just sort of a very capsule, I mean, I know you've talked about this before, so this information is out there, but maybe a brief history of the project, and especially the realization of like table reads being just an ideal transition to radio.
Yeah, I mean, and that really was the beginning of the Thrilling Adventure Hour. Ben and I wrote a feature script called Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars. We had a bunch of actors that my writing partner Ben Acker knew to come over and read it. Mark was among them. Paul F. Tompkins was there. And the reading of the script was so great. The script was pretty good, but the reading of it, what the actors brought it to a whole different level.
I still vividly remember that day and being introduced to that world of that story for the first time. And don't sell the script short. It was an excellent.
It was fine. It was an Indiana Jones pastiche. It was Sparks Nevada used to be a sort of different thing in our heads.
It was also different people doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Holmes Osborne, a terrific actor. Who you know as the father from every movie in the 90s. He was the dad in That Thing You Do, and a bunch of things. But he read Sparks, and he was a very Gary Cooper type.
Yeah. And a different guy, Mike Ross, I think, was reading Croach.
Vincent Kartheiser was there.
Yeah.
From Mad Men.
I remember that, yeah.
Something? I don't even remember. But, we walked away from that saying there has to be a way to let other people see this. Like, this is the best show we've ever seen, and it had to be in my living room. And we knew we wanted to use a lot of these same actors, and we knew we wanted to use working actors. We knew we wanted to work in genre stuff because that's what Ben and I really like. We like playing with those tropes. And we knew we wanted to make an easy ask for the actors, and that we'd be writing a new script every month. So, and that script probably wouldn't get to them until a few days before the show. So we wanted them to be able to hold those scripts in hand. So the radio conceit initially was just practical.
The speed of it, the speed of production that... And you kind of don't have to wait for as many people to say yes to spend a lot of money or anything like that.
And more people do say yes when the question is, hey, do you have a night, rather than do you have several weeks to memorize the script and rehearse. If you just say, hey, we have a show, we'd love, to have them come and do it.
Yeah.
See, my fear was when I'd heard about your project, that you'd be sort of thumbing your nose at old time radio, because like a lot of people when they take on something as an homage, it's just easier to parody it, to just
Absolutely.
like pick on the histrionics of the old kind of acting and all that stuff, and to find such a loving way to treat it. And to me, like, you could actually take a lot of your script almost verbatim, give it to those actors 50, 60 years ago, and it would totally work.
Yeah.
There's just this extra little energy you put into it to make it funny. And I'm just curious, like, how did other people react? Did anybody else sort of have these questions about what it was you were doing?
Well, I feel like the comedy of it comes not from parodying the radio. It just comes from the characters. It's all like, again, like Ben said, that's just sort of the medium is this old time radio thing. I will say I'm a huge old time radio fan, actually. I know for these guys, it was more, for the writers, it was, when creators of the show, it was more of a practical thing. But
yeah, we did our deep dive a couple of years into the show.
Yeah.
Okay, see, now, sorry, forgive me.
Oh, please.
We had heard some, I think it was unavoidable.
Everybody has a
growing up
grandpa.
when we grew up. Exactly.
Yeah.
But we didn't really go deep into it until we were out of story ideas after 2 years. Wonder what they actually did.
Well, see, here in Chicago, there used to be a weekly show. Actually, it's still on, called Those Were the Days. So every week, 4 hours a week, we'd get inundated with this stuff.
Great.
And as a kid, I mean, like from 5th grade on, I was listening to this stuff.
Oh yeah, well, it's bad because they didn't have podcasts back then.
Right. That's exactly.
That's the getting told a story for half an hour is a great thing. I commute to work, 40 miles, and Radio Classics on Sirius is
That's perfect.
Is a fantastic resource for that drive.
So, like, some of my favorites were like, obviously the biggies, Jack Benny, the surrealism of Burns and Allen. But I love a mystery.
Oh yeah.
X-1 suspense.
X-1 is fantastic. They used to, as Sirius would play X-1 and Suspense back to back, and I remember I was driving home one night. It was dark and it was raining.
Yeah.
And an episode of Suspense came on that was directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh wow!
And it was one man. It was a first-person narrator who did the vast majority of this. This thing, or there were a few other voices that would pop in, but I remember being completely terrified in my car by myself, just listening to the radio, and I was like, "This is what it's supposed to be. This is it at its best."
And I do think you guys just do such a great job capturing a lot of that vibe of just being that compelling, and yet super funny. So, okay, since we're talking about the sort of heritage that you've sort of inherited, has anybody ever asked you about, Firesign Theater? They were in the 70s. They were the guys who were like carrying that mantle for a while in their own absurd, amazingly crafted way.
Yeah.
I actually used to work with the Firesign Theater guys very briefly. I did the only one of their albums that they had never produced as a stage show was Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him. So I was with a theater group in Los Angeles that we called up the Firesign Theater and we said, "Can we put this on stage? We think we figured out how to do it." And they were like, and the Phils were like, "Yeah, great, we'll come, we'll be there." And they came down, and yeah, it was a blast. It was really fun.
Oh, that is outstanding. And I mean, that's the part that really sparks me about what you guys do. It's like the Firesign Theater they did an album every 2-3 years, and it was very, very studio, very like layered and all that. The fact that you're able to do this every month, the writing is that sparky and that layered. I don't understand it. I figured there were 10 guys doing it.
I wish there were 10 guys doing it. We need to hire a writing staff. No, I mean, for us, it's just to go back to kind of the original question, this is just another way to tell stories that we want to tell. Sparks and Beyond Belief and any of these stories can live in other media as they have. I mean, in comic books and TV and whatever. The radio conceit and the live show is just what we are doing with these stories right now. I think part of the reason we've been compared to Firesign quite a bit online, on Twitter and stuff, which is amazingly flattering.
Yeah.
I think we took a while to come around to this is radio, because for us it was always a stage show.
I was going to say, even from hearing some of the earlier podcasts.
Yeah, well, we spent 5 years before was it 6 even?
5 years.
5 years at a little cabaret theater in LA that we never podcasted the show.
Okay.
It was just a stage show.
Yeah, it was kind of where we learned how to do the show and how to write on schedule and what works in the show and how to tell stories in this medium, which, I mean, I know the performers have told us it's a weird show to do. It's not quite radio, it's not quite voiceover, it's not quite stand-up, it's not quite sketch. It's a combination of all of these things, so it did take some figuring out.
I actually found myself last night on stage. We did a show last night at the Merle Reskin Theater, we instead of going backstage, we as we usually do, we'd go backstage between segments, come out, go to our microphones. It would be a little wonky based on the way that the stage was set up, so we decided we're just going to back away from the mics when other things are happening. And I found myself thinking exactly that. I backed up and I'm standing against this curtain and I have my script in my hand, and I had the thought popped into my head of, am I supposed to still be in character right now?
That's a good question.
I was like, I'm standing back here and I'm looking around and I'm surrounded by the rest of the actors who had also just stepped back for this soliloquy that Craig did. And everybody is doing a mix of that. Some are just watching and smiling. Some are still in character. And I was like, see, I'm not crazy for not knowing which of these to do.
I actually had that thought at the show Tuesday night.
Yeah.
We do these theme songs in the show, which are ridiculously great theme songs written by Andy Paley with Acker and me. And Eben Schletter wrote the Sparks Nevada theme. And we had a flamenco guitarist at our show in LA earlier this week. And so it was a different take on the theme song, and everyone was kind of dancing and having a great time. And Mark was 100% in character as Croach, standing straight ahead. Croach does not dance.
Croach does not
dance. But I always think, when they're singing the song, are they in character? Yeah. But Croach wouldn't sing.
Yeah, but I do sing. And that's the thing. It's sort of that weird. Yeah, for what audience are we doing?
Yes.
What elements of it?
Well, radio people and even just voiceover people often talk about how lonely it is in the studio, especially since they don't often do ensemble because of the technical.
Yeah,
you don't want to bleed over to people. So you guys have the performance thing, but you're really not lonesome up there. Everybody's watching you. So
it's the opposite.
It's funny. I have been so spoiled by doing this show and everyone being in the room trying to make each other laugh. I was so excited recently because we had Jackson Public from Venture Brothers on the show several times, and he asked me to come on Venture Brothers and do a voice. And I was like, great, this is going to be so much fun. And I get to the studio and I was like, all right, where are the rest of the actors? And he's like, no, we're doing it individually, and then I cobble it together, he says. I said, well, who am I playing to? He's like, you're playing to me. I'm like, all right.
At least he's a good actor.
He is an excellent actor, and he's and it is fun to listen to him play every character that I'm in the scene with.
So do you have other actors you'd want to join you? I mean, I know you've had contemporary actors show up. Have you had any radio giants show up, or like what if I said living or dead? Who would you have join the cast?
Living or dead.
You got some of your classics, like June Foray is still around. Stan Freberg is still around.
Yeah. June Foray, we actually went out to because she's in LA and she's still working in voiceover. John DiMaggio knows her, and she was not available that time. But there are a few of these VO guys who are still around who would be a thrill to get.
Living or dead, I assume dead at this point. But the actor, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, Dragnet.
Jack Webb.
Jack Webb. Yeah.
I feel like Craig could do that.
Jack Webb, because I feel like he and Mark Evan Jackson, listening to them together would be, because Jack Webb did this thing on Dragnet where it's so dry,
It's comic.
It is
so dry.
That show is hilarious.
It really is.
And it's not so much when they're just going around solving a crime, but at the very beginning when they're just sitting in a diner talking about whatever before they get their assignment, and then at the end when they're doing the same thing again. Man, is he funny, and the side comments.
Well, there's no cross editing. There's no point at which the audio, like the minute somebody talks, you see them.
Yeah.
It's like the most 101 level.
Oh yeah.
Editing.
Yeah.
That show and I think Mission Impossible are my favorite comedies of that era.
Yeah.
Because like Mission Impossible, a lot of it's just silent. It's just the almost pornographic fetishizing of like making a gadget and drilling a hole.
Yeah.
For like 45 minutes.
That's
with that same song playing underneath.
Absolutely, that same song.
You know who we would be, if we could bring someone back, would be the best guy? Vincent Price.
Oh my God. Vincent Price I would love to have Vincent Price on our show. I do have my two dream actors. My list keeps changing, but right now my two dream actors that I would love to have on the show are Matt Frewer and Corey Stoll. I would love to have both of those on the show. I love Matt Frewer.
I shouldn't be sticking my ass in my own interview. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Vegas. I got to meet the producer of Max Headroom.
No kidding.
And to me, Max Headroom made me get into like TV and film.
Yeah.
And it's because of his wife that we even know who Max Headroom is. Like he told me the whole story of how Max Headroom came to the U.S.
Really?
Just outstanding.
That's
and a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
It made Vegas a lot more tolerable.
Oh, come on. It's Vegas. It's great.
I don't drink. I don't gamble.
Yeah, there you go. It's funny, one of the guys in our cast, Hal Lublin, has zero vices, basically. He's not a drinker, no drinking, no smoking.
He's a damn saint.
Public masturbator.
Yeah, public masturbator. He's a complete saint. And I did say to him, as we started this trip, I was like, he said, now listen, I know you guys like to stay out late. And he's like, I've got to get home. I've got to get in the hotel room. I need to get my sleep. And I said, Hal, there are casinos right outside Chicago. And Hal said, all right, how far away are these casinos? I was like, he does have one vice.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of your touring seems to be with the Comic-Con kind of crowd, right? I mean, I know you do the live show, obviously, in LA all the time. But like when you've taken it on the road, am I right about that? Like you've done a New York Comic-Con or two?
Yeah, we did San Diego. We did Emerald City last month.
So that almost seems like stacking the deck a little bit, like by just people who are going to be really open to these genre stories and multiple methods of telling a story.
Oh yeah.
Like what other audiences do you feel like you're reaching? Like theater people, like you were saying before?
A thing that I think theater people love our show. I think that Hal actually said, which I think is absolutely true because it's where the show comes from, is if you are a fan of something, then you will love this show. You just have to find it. If you are a fan of comic books, of genre television, of fantasy, of celebrities,
of time travel,
theater, I mean, any of these tropes or genres or people, then there's something for you in this show because it really is a collection of odd things mixed together. And it comes from the fact that, I mean, starting with Ben and me, we're fans of things. We love comics, we love sci-fi, we love horror movies, and that's where all the pieces of the show come from. And the people in the show are fans of things. I mean, Hal would be a fan of the show if he wasn't in the show.
Yes. I believe Hal is a big fan of the show. He has all of the merchandise.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because my sum up was probably exactly that. I was just saying that it's very clear you guys adore this genre, and by genre I mean like this collection of genres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that it's unfortunate that in order to enjoy it, you had to make it. That, like you have to go through all of that work.
Yeah.
If this existed, we would not have made this show.
Right.
We would have just gotten to listen to it.
I mean, from an audience standpoint, I feel like it's like a writing triumph, acting triumph, performance triumph. Like I can't think of one thing that's not working. It's just so perfect on all levels. I mean, maybe I'm only hearing the good ones. But, but no, it's,
one or two clunkers every once in a while.
Oh, for sure.
No, it's outstanding, and the way, even the model you guys use, the podcasting, like I've got to imagine by now you've been approached by like media, like, well, let's put you on. No, okay, well, never mind that.
Listen, I would love it. My dream is that one day American Public Radio or NPR or PRI or one of those companies says, you know what, we're giving you an hour a week.
Be the best.
Yeah, even a monthly hour. Oh, that would be so fun,
absolutely.
Wouldn't it?
Well, and that seems like what you do now. Because that's what I was thinking. Like, if you guys were a weekly show, like, just how would you keep up? I mean, if you don't have the phalanx of writers working for you, how do you just do it? How do you keep it layered and stacked and just have all of those delights built in?
We do what we do now, which is Ben and I love writing the show. We love the worlds, and we love writing for these actors. And that's where it all comes from. That's where the depth of story comes from. It's, we love diving in and doing it, and we're always discovering new things in every script we write. I didn't know we could do this, or when we see the performance, I didn't know this actor had this in his bag of tricks. Let's use it next time. Let's make it a point to use it next time.
Well, tell me. I mean, you've mastered the podcasting thing. You're consistently very highly rated. You get to release it when you want to release it. So you have a lot of control that way.
Well, we release it every week.
Right, I understand.
There is that schedule, which we
good,
sometimes barely make.
Which is a good discipline to have. But you don't have. I guess what I'm trying to say is like when you work in mainstream media, you have a lot of people you have to make happy.
Yeah.
And whereas you guys sort of run the asylum yourself.
Yes.
But tell me. How else are you sort of spreading your wings? You said you have comics. Tell our audience a little bit about, besides the podcast, once they've soaked that in and become thoroughly soaked in that, like, what else can they get into?
The best complement to the podcast is the graphic novel, which came out last year, the Eisner-nominated graphic novel for Best Anthology, which we're so flattered by, because we're all really proud of the book. It's 10 different stories from 10 worlds of Thrilling Adventure Hour, illustrated by 10 different artists, written by Ben and me. And it's honestly, I say this as if I did not have a hand in it, but it's a gorgeous book.
It is beautiful.
We were so knocked out. The printer did an amazing job. The designer did an amazing job.
There are jokes crammed in 4-point font.
Yeah.
On the cover of the book, for God's sake. They
on the end pages, like the designer killed it.
Yeah.
And that's something people can find on like thrillingadventurehour.com?
Find it in every comic book store.
Yeah, it's in comic book stores. You go to Amazon, go to the Archaea website, and they're all there. And
we also have our concert film coming out, which I am incredibly excited about. Some of our favorite guest stars came and played. Like your Nathan Fillion is in it.
Heard of him. Of playing a space
Castle
cowboy?
And Firefly fame. A space cowboy is something foreign to him. The lead character on a television show I am obsessed with, Clark Gregg of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is in the film as well. Playing the weird...
Don't give it away.
I'm not going to give it away. All right, you guys see the movie. He's great.
That we signed with a distributor that should be doing something by the end of the year. If people gave to Kickstarter, they will get their DVDs by the end of the year. We also have, which is, I wish we had action figures.
I thought you did have little sculptures.
We have little,
we have figurines.
Yeah.
But
there is a Croach the Tracker. My character has a figurine.
Yes, exactly.
I have a figurine of Croach the Tracker, and I absolutely call it an action figure.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for sure. One of the things that is the most fun about the show is what goes on backstage at the show, and it's a thing that feels old-time radio. For some reason,
because there's scotch,
and maybe because it's radio days and like any of these kind of behind the scenes at Old Time Radio. But we shot a documentary web series that will be coming out on Nerdist on May 8th every week, but starting on May 8th. That is all behind the scenes of the show and what goes on and who's involved. And I watched, I think, the third episode of it, and they first of all, they're beautiful. The director did an amazing job. It looks gorgeous. But I watched the third episode, and I turned to the producer and was like, "This is so much fun. I want to be a part of this show." Oh, I'm a part of this show. I really like this. So I think it will really show people a thing that they don't get to see that is part of why we love doing the show.
And all that's on thrillingadventurehour.com or nerdist.com. Where would you like us to send people?
Thrillingadventurehour.com is always the best place to find out about what we're up to. We're coming to New York on May 10th to Town Hall for a really big show with every actor in New York is in it, I think.
Yeah.
You can talk about that.
You want to talk old school? We got Dick Cavett for the radio show in New York. We're very
Ira
excited
Glass is doing that show. John Hodgman, Terry Kinney, Jackson Public. It's going to be Paul and Storm, Jonathan Colton. It's going to be
It's
crazy
going to be
show.
huge.
Zachary Levi, Scott Ackerman.
What's the date on that?
May 10th,
May
10th.
Town Hall.
Very, very soon.
Yes, tickets available on our
You guys should
website.
start rehearsing pretty soon.
Oh, we rehearse. Well, if the show's at 8, we rehearse at 7.
Exactly.
You don't want to over-rehearse. You don't want to get a
Exactly.
stale,
We
Well, they
aspire
write
to
it
know
at
the
5.
script.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let me thank both of you. It's been a genuine pleasure meeting you both.
Thank you
as well.
Thanks
This
for
was a lot of
speaking to us at Retro Thing, and good luck with the show.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.